So let me get this straight. Unknown perpetrators decided that they were going to hack and impersonated trusted public figures, including some of our government elected officials, CEOs of major global companies, compromise a mass communications network. And then on top of that, do it for the purposes of grifting nearly $250,000 from people of a near untraceable currency, which we have no idea what they'll do with that money. And on top of all of that, they did it using administrative tools we didn't know Twitter had that can bypass two-factor authentication, all of our privacy, DMs, and have access to phone numbers, email accounts, everything. And we didn't know that they had those tools. We should be very concerned. But the more troubling issue for the internet is verified versus unverified accounts and people being in their feelings about blue check marks. Okay, 2020, the gift that keeps on giving, am I right? Let's jump into the video. Hey everybody, this is Roberto Blake, and we are not talking about anything awesome today. Today we are talking about the Twitter hack that you may have experienced on July 15th of 2020. Again, the wonderful year of 2020. And we need to talk about why it's worse than you think and how serious it is. And I think I probably covered that in the first 90 seconds of this video. So right now I want to talk about three different parties here. I want to talk about the problem with Twitter. I want to talk about the problem with the general public using Twitter and not understanding certain things. And then I want to talk about the internet community's response to this hack. And then I want to wrap up the video with some helpful advice that might help you protect your privacy, whether you're an average Joe or whether you are an influencer, entrepreneur with a small business online using these platforms, because it's not just Twitter. There are obvious privacy concerns to have about Facebook. Some of you have quit Facebook. We just talked about privacy, national security, and data breaches regarding TikTok and why the US might ban it. we just talked about that last week. So this video is very timely. And like I said, watch it to the end because there's going to be some helpful advice in terms of protecting your own privacy, protecting your own data, and how to use these platforms. I really wish this was something stronger than water right now. So let's talk about the problem with Twitter. And I have nothing against Twitter, and this is just, a criticism as a user and someone who actually does rely on the platform for their small business and for directly communicating with my audience. You guys, if you want, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Roberto Blake. I keep DMs open so that you guys can, ask questions. I try to answer questions publicly so we can help as many people as possible. Sometimes I send you guys video responses. I use Twitter a lot, but I do have my criticisms of the platform the same way I have my criticisms of other platforms that I use. With this Twitter hack, they socially engineered this and got access to administrative tools by getting access to Twitter employees, which is very troubling, very concerning. Okay, this is a major problem. And if you guys are still kind of catching up on this and you're like, Roberto, what are you even talking about? Well, July 15th, 2020, Twitter was hacked in a major breach, and large accounts, whether we're talking about Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, former President Barack Obama, Mr. Beast, big YouTuber on this platform, beloved by all, these accounts were compromised, and a lot of them were used to tweet out a cryptocurrency scam. Now, if you guys have watched the previous video that I've done about how cryptocurrency scams to target YouTubers and have hacked YouTube accounts, stolen AdSense revenue from content creators. Like, this is a big deal, and this keeps happening across a lot of platforms. And that's why it's very important for me to talk about privacy, security, and about these online scams. And so when you have something like this happen, it is a big deal. But Twitter, in response to this, also locked down verified Twitter accounts since they were being used to target people with these scams because people trust these verified accounts. In many cases, a lot of these people, if we're talking about content creators like Mr. Beast or even myself, we built very strong relationships with our communities, And people manipulating that by impersonating us would be a very bad thing for our followers. That's part of the reason that we applied to be verified in the first place. It was not really about clout, which I know people make it about, and some people do. But for us, it was really about protecting our community. And you can see why we would need to do that with these scams and the fact that these scammers managed to grift $250,000 worth of Bitcoin. And we have no idea who they are or what they'll do. That money is not in good hands. And we should be very worried about that. We also should be worried about the fact that, again, Twitter's vulnerability to this is unprecedented. This is something that seems insane. It seems like this is the plot to a movie of some kind of suspense thriller movie. I don't know if you guys ever watched the old 90s film, The Net, or more recently, Eagle Eye. It seems like something out of fiction. But I think a lot of people are rightfully concerned that Twitter administrators had these absurdly powerful tools that we didn't know about, and we didn't really think that they had these kinds of capabilities. At least most of us didn't believe that. And so I find that that is very concerning and something that was exposed in this hack. And now we know, and there's no reason for us to think that this couldn't happen again. We don't know how many people have access to these tools. We don't know how vulnerable these employees are to being social engineered, or what process or protocols are in place to prevent an issue like this. And whatever they are, they weren't enough. They weren't enough to protect us. And so that is a problem in terms of Twitter's capacity to protect the privacy of people using it, whether it's the average Joe or a small business owner or an elected official. And so you can see why that would be a problem. Now, moving on to the problem with how the general public uses Twitter, it goes to a much larger problem in society. Something I've talked about in podcast interviews that bothers me a lot when I think about it is that in the online world, a lot of people do not take the time to verify and do not have enough in terms of critical thinking and a healthy amount of skepticism. You know that I'm very harsh about overwhelmingly being cynical about things. I don't like the idea of being hyper cynical, but I do think being reasonably cautious, skeptical, and wanting to verify things from multiple sources is a good thing. But Twitter is in such a way so hyper addictive and so hyper real time that a lot of people don't do that. And it's a problem that goes beyond just one person maybe getting scammed or conned. It leads to the bigger problem of disinformation and fake news, and also perpetuating scams unknowingly. So a lot of times people will retweet something from people they like or a verified account without thinking about it and trust that the information is accurate and real. But the person behind that account is just a regular human being. They're capable of making mistakes. They're capable of failing to think critically and failing to verify things from time to time. I'm sure I've probably done it at some point or another because I'm nowhere near perfect and I can be scatterbrained just like anybody else. Also, it's possible for me to be biased and put too much faith into someone that I like or somebody that I believe to be a trusted authority or opinion, or again, somebody that I have a personal relationship with, like one of my favorite content creators. I might retweet something of theirs without double checking or thinking just because they've been solid in the past. And the thing is, if for whatever reason their account is compromised, or I don't know that somebody else has access to their accounts, like maybe somebody on their team or an admin, I don't know. And so, you should really think twice about those kind of things. And I think that more of us need to do that. And the average person on these platforms is not tech savvy. The average person on these platforms is not deeply invested in the culture of the internet. And so it's very easy for somebody without thinking about it to perpetuate and spread fake news. And with the emphasis that we put on social proof and clout and big numbers, and we all do it, and these status symbols, it means that this will be an ongoing problem. It may not even be a solvable problem, which is scary to think about. And since every one of those likes and retweets is an added layer of credibility, if something is misinformation, if something is fake news, if something is a scam, then it means that it's being elevated and it's being pushed to more people that could be vulnerable to it. And you could see exactly why that is a massive problem on Twitter and in other social media platforms. Everyday people use Twitter in their small businesses. They use it to make buying decisions, and they also use it just to express themselves. So when we have these bigger platform issues, we have to consider that it's not just about the people there in the internet culture and community. It's regular, everyday people that may not be tech savvy and may not be aware of some of the things that we really look at hard or that we really are passionate about or care about. And that makes them the most likely people to not only be vulnerable to scams or to fraud or to any of those things, but also likely to help elevate it unintentionally. And that's part of why when I say, when there are those of us who again, we have these relationships with our community, impersonation is dangerous because it makes those people very vulnerable because trust is there and trust has been given to people in that situation, whether it's an influencer or whether it's an elected official or whether it's somebody that's the head of a company or somebody that is part of the media, the traditional media, for agree or disagree with it, people have given them their trust. And so when something comes from them, they trust it to be accurate at the very least and not dangerous to them at the best. So, just take that for what it is. So finally, I want to talk about the internet community's response to this. And this isn't a criticism of any one individual or any one group, but it's just a bigger issue that I personally see with the culture of the internet and how some things go. And I'm going to try to get through this and then get you guys some real solid advice on how to protect your privacy, because that's kind of where I want to go with this. The internet community considers itself often removed from the real world and in a fantasy world and a playground. And I know this because that's how I thought of it when I was 13 years old back in the AOL days. AOL 6.0, for those of you who are hashtag old heads and long-suffering internet users, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You remember Angel Fire, Lycos, GeoCities, Real Player, you know what I'm talking about. So when I think about it, I remember that the internet was, and often today still is, a form of escapism for me. But with that in mind, the internet today is this miraculous tool that we use a lot on this channel to build real businesses and to develop our careers, build our personal brand, and to also help people. And when you think about that, the internet world has real world consequences for people. It's not some make pretend place. I don't even like saying IRL anymore because the internet is just an extension of the real world. And when things happen online, they have real consequences for people. And I think that we need to do a better job in the internet community of acknowledging that these worlds are not separate, they are one. That is a larger issue, and if we recognize that, we'll behave a little bit differently, probably for the better. It's real people behind that screen, that keyboard, that phone, and I think we need to do a better job of acknowledging that. So I know that a lot of the celebrating of verified Twitter versus unverified Twitter, I know that was a lot of jokes, memes, haves versus have-nots, but for some people it is very serious to them and it's very personal to them. And I understand the concept of disenfranchisement as somebody who, again, was from that background, somebody who, again, always was thinking about what they didn't have, somebody who started out in the workforce making $6 an hour, basically trading an hour of my life for a Subway sandwich, okay? So it's not like I don't understand. These hackers are not your heroes. These hackers are not for the little guy. These are people, we have no idea what they want. We have no idea what their motives are. We have no idea what they did beyond this crypto scam, but that scam is enough by itself, defrauding people, regardless of whether you think it was a couple of rich kids, or whether you thought it was some 20-something-year-old, crypto trader that you don't have any sympathy for. The scammer, the grifter, the thief is never the hero of the story, okay? I want to make that abundantly clear. These people, whoever they are, this individual, compromised a global communications platform and then weaponized the trust that people have in their favorite internet celebrities or the trust that they have in some of these cryptocurrency platforms. They weaponized people's trust against them to defraud them, to con them. And that is never something we get to celebrate, okay? That's never something that is okay. And by celebrating it and by memeing it, we don't know that won't encourage more people to do these things. And we don't know what the consequences are. And again, we don't know who these people are. So again, you could be calling them a hero today, and then we could find out that they are very, very bad, very dangerous people later. And you don't want to be on the hook for that. So just saying. Also, as a community, I think it's important for us to stress the need to protect privacy. That's something that I want more people to be vocal about. I wish people who are as vocal about this verified, unverified thing were as vocal about the importance of privacy and data, and the simple fact that Twitter failed us. Twitter failed us when it came to protecting our privacy, protecting our data, and protecting the trust that people have built with their community. And that's something that we have to talk about more and that we have to bring up, because it's probably the more important underlying issue when you consider the real world consequences of that. And the fact that these people didn't just, hack celebrities and influencers. I mean, that sounds cute and that sounds fun, but a tweet that goes out from the wrong account could start an international incident, or it could tank the stock market. And if you think that only affects the rich, it affects the pensions of people like your parents or your grandparents that are, their retirement is invested in the stock market. So we need to pause, slow down, and really think about what we're talking about here and the massive consequences this has in the real world when we talk about this. And again, I'm not against making light of things in some cases, okay? I'm not against joking and humor. I've tried to inject more of that into these videos and to chill out a bit myself. But privacy and security and potential national security threats is where I think we have to draw a line in the sand. I talked a lot about this with my friend Shannon at Snubs in Twitter, Shannon Morse. You should definitely reach out to her if you have questions about any of this, because she's from the InfoSec part of Twitter and knows a lot about privacy and security. And whenever I have questions about these things, I go to her. So definitely follow her on Twitter if you can. And I want to give you guys the most helpful and actionable advice that I know how when it comes to protecting your privacy, your security, and your data. If you're going to be using these platforms, you need to use them as safely as possible for your brand, your business, and the relationship you have with your audience. The first thing is to consider all of your communications on these platforms as vulnerable and act accordingly. Try to limit the sensitive information that you share using these platforms as communication tools. Understand that they haven't done the best job of protecting that information, and act accordingly. Shorthand version, assume anything you're sharing using DMs and private messaging features is not private. Assume that it is vulnerable. Assume that it will be hacked. The end. Number 2, with these kind of hacks, your personal phone number could be vulnerable. So you might want to start using a Google Voice number whenever you have to verify your phone number with these platforms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Google, whether it's anything you sign up for online. Anything you sign up for online that requires you to put in a phone number, consider using a Google Voice number so that you can protect your personal contact information and that's not put out there. The other thing you want to look at is your personal physical address. You might want to get a virtual address or a PO box and use that whenever you're signing up for these online accounts. Also do this whenever you're registering your domain names and your website. Because of the internet registry, you want to make sure that you're using maybe a Google Voice number and also using a PO box or a virtual address whenever you're signing up for those things. Use two-factor authentication on everything when it comes to these platforms, even though if someone compromises the platform itself, it doesn't help nearly as much, because then they're using all powerful admin tools that bypass that. So just again, assume that everything is vulnerable, but use two-factor authentication anyway. Consider using a password manager like LastPass. I'm gonna link to that in the description down below, along with some other things. And that will help you with strong passwords and also managing that stuff. In terms of protecting also access to your financial accounts, you'll want to start making sure that you have a dedicated email address just for things like your financial accounts, and maybe a separate dedicated email address that you use only for signing up social media accounts and things like that. These email addresses should never be public. No one should know the email account that you use to log into your bank account and into your financial accounts, and nobody should know the email address that you use to log into your social media accounts. So that is actually extremely important, and it's massively overlooked, especially by people in the YouTube community. And that's where a lot of these phishing scams and a lot of people hacking YouTube accounts, that usually comes down to that. And so you want to separate these things as much as possible. I know it's a hassle to have more than one email account, but it's an added layer of safety and security. Protect your finances, protect your data, and to protect the access you have to your community and to your audience. And of course, finally, just try to not share extremely sensitive information that's either very personal to you or has an impact for your business using these public platforms, even if you're using their private features, because your privacy is not guaranteed. They cannot guarantee and they cannot protect your privacy. And I think that's been proven time and time and time again. So please, please, please take that seriously, protect yourself and protect your community by just taking all the precautions necessary. You know, an ounce of paranoia right now probably is for the best. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So in this case, I don't think you can be paranoid enough. Question of the day. What do you think about all of this and what I had to say? Do you agree with any of it? Do you disagree with any of it? Let's have a thoughtful and respectful conversation about it down below. Also, make sure you're following me on Twitter, Instagram, and now over on my Twitch channel, because we have to diversify our platforms lest any of them go down. All right. Thank you guys so much. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you're having a great day in a very scary world where 2020 just keeps on rolling. Anyway, like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend, please. And as always, you guys, thanks so very much for watching. And don't forget, go out there and create something awesome today, even if 2020 is an absolute dumpster fire. Take care.